Here's an interview from one of our past shows on Rock and Metal Revival. If you're interested in hearing full shows, go to our Facebook page and check out our list of affiliates for times and places where you can hear Rock and Metal Revival. From the 1983 US Festival, there is Triumph and When the Lights Go Down, and Triumph is releasing a 40th anniversary double vinyl LP. Now, Jerry, it comes in black, blue, and red. And
we already ordered ours.
Already ordered our copies. And with us today, we want to welcome from Triumph, Gil Moore. Gil, it's a pleasure to have you on Rock and Metal Revival.
Hey, great to be here, Greg. How are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. And Gil, I can remember where I was watching the US Festival performance on MTV thinking, this might be the best music festival of my life. What was going through your mind when you guys took the stage in front of that just mass of people?
Well, we've been doing some big shows, before that. Like, we did Canada Jam in 78, which is, I guess, the first really big one. It was over 100,000. It was the same promoters that did Cal Jam, Sandy Perlman and Lenny Stogel. But, that US Festival show, it was truly a sight to behold. We had played the day before, for example, in the T-Bowl in Orlando with ZZ Top, which was 55,000. And that same summer, I think, we played the Cotton Bowl in Dallas and Houston Astrodome. Those are both 80,000. But they were like teacups compared to this. I mean, we came in on the helicopter and it looked like a city of ants, as we were flying in.
Oh, I bet. Now, do you think it was more nerve-wracking playing during the day than for the bands that played at night, where they couldn't see all of humanity was just going forever and ever?
I never thought of it from that point of view, but I think that we were pretty confident in what we were doing, and we weren't a band that would get sloshed or anything before we went on stage. So we were going out there like it was a sports event. We were ready to go. We all had enough sleep and enough to eat, and we're ready to sort of attack the stage. So there wasn't a ton of nerves in our camp, to be honest with you. We're used to the big shows, and that the crowd's on your side anyhow. So that's probably what makes it easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Gil, I remember seeing Triumph for the first time 41 years ago this Memorial Day weekend at Milwaukee County Stadium at the World Series of Rock. And I was a fan going in, but after seeing you live, I've been hooked. I've been a Triumph fan all these years. And as a band, did you see you guys as more of a studio album type band, or a band that really was meant to be on stage at high volume?
I think that live has always been our strong suit. I mean, we love being in the studio, don't get me wrong, but from the very first day that we started rehearsing, when we found Rick, and we figured, okay, now we've got the right combination. And we had a bowling alley here in Mississauga that we were able to rent. It was a vacant bowling alley. That's what we used as a rehearsal hall. And I could tell right there, because once you'd start rehearsing and I'd see how much energy we could do with nobody in the audience, just the three of us, what we could actually put out, I thought, man, you get this on a big stage in front of an audience, and we're going to be able to turn these audiences upside down. So we started from the standpoint of, it's all about live, and we always wanted to be theatrical. So, I mean, obviously when we played outdoor shows, which we did in many times, and played in daylight with no lights and things like that, that was a different story. But when we played indoors in arenas, we always had a lot of theatrical stuff going on. So we were very focused on the live performance and the interacting with the audience that way. But when the tours were over and we went in the studio, we loved recording as well.
Yeah. Now, we saw your documentary, Triumph Rock and Roll Machine, and man, it brought back a lot of memories, like those commercials that you guys did when you guys were out on touring. I remember seeing those, and those are the reasons I went and bought tickets, because I hadn't found out about any other concerts that way. And it was like, where'd the idea to do TV commercials for your tours come from?
So what happened there is kind of an interesting story. You know, we were in a sort of a different space because we were coming across the border from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we knew that just like all the Canadian bands that, you know, did well up here but never really busted through in the United States, there was always that thing at the 49th parallel there that seemed to hold Canadian bands back, and we didn't want to be one of those bands.
Mm.
And I remember being watching TV in Toronto. This was just before Triumph started, and this big sort of R&B ensemble that George Clinton had called the Parliaments and the Funkadelics.
Oh yeah.
And they were on tour, and they had a TV commercial, and I had never seen a TV commercial for a tour ever before.
Yeah.
And I called Mike and I went, "Hey man," because we both liked R&B, right? And we liked the Parliaments, the Funkadelics, George Clinton, Bootsy Collins, all those guys. They were ahead of their time. And I said, "Have you seen this TV commercial for Parliaments and the Funkadelics?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Well, you got to catch it." And I forget what channel it was on, but I sort of hipped him up to it. And he caught it, and I said, "Just imagine that with a hard rock band. Same concept. Like, just take what we do live and package it in a TV commercial." So that was sort of the seed of the idea, because we felt like our thing was totally different.
Yeah.
Obviously not an R&B show. And RCA Records, our label at the time, they became convinced we were right. So they said, "Okay, we'll pay for the TV commercial and we'll put it on the air." And so you're right. I mean, that had a lot to do with breaking the band in America on the very, very first tour. Before people had seen us, it was a way for them to see us.
Yeah.
And then once they did get in this concert venue and they saw us for real, that was the turning point.
Yeah, you were hooked.
Definitely.
Now, going back to the documentary, you took us as Triumph fans into the Metalworks studios and showed us all that Triumph memorabilia that you had stored away for years, which was amazing for guys like us to see.
Really?
Now, my question, with all these bands, Gil, coming out with albums of quote-unquote previously unreleased material from the vault, is there a Triumph vault that has a bunch of maybe unreleased songs that we could see in the future?
It's possible. I mean, I wouldn't say that we have a ton of stuff that we feel good about releasing that's recorded in the studio. We have a ton of live stuff that I'd say we feel good about releasing. We didn't tend to over-record. Like, so when we had an album that had, 8 or 9 tracks on it, we didn't tend to have 15 or 16 and pick the best 8 or 9. We were in a rush to get back out on tour, so usually it was like we did 8 or 9 tracks, maybe 10, and then that was it. So there is not like I know when Prince was recording here, for example, and he had all these vaults back at Paisley Park, and it was like he had all this stuff that he'd recorded that hadn't been released. We weren't really that type of band, so. A lot of live stuff we have that's still going to probably come out, and there is a little bit of unrecorded, unreleased stuff rather in the vaults here, but nothing compared to the memorabilia that we had.
Nice.
Now, the flying cake, the video, you guys think that's what you guys called it? The flying cake video for Magic Power, the one that only played a couple times on MTV. Now, that was hilarious to discover. Is there any chance you're going to put that up on your website so we could all watch it on there instead of having to search the internet for it?
You know what? I'll put that one in the suggestion box. I don't know. It was the funniest thing, because that got ahead of us, because normally we were kind of control freaks and we always were on top of our own stuff. In this case, we listened to a guy, fatal last move, like listening to some guy with a bright idea. So this guy convinced us to just trust him. And, we went and did this video, and of course, while we're recording it, we're looking at each other like, this isn't going to work. This is hunk of crap. And, Anyway, when it was finished, we didn't like it much better. They said, well, wait till it's all edited and everything. We're like, you can't make this any better. It's just a crazy idea. And then of course, RCA had paid a fortune to have these videos made, so they were like, "Oh, show us the videos," and they come out, and then we just had to plead with them to just bury them, like, don't release these things, like, because we just didn't want them to see the light of day. I don't know. I look at it now, and looking back, and now that it's so old, it's corny anyway. So it's not really embarrassing. It's more sort of, I don't know what the right word is.
It's entertaining.
It's entertaining. Yeah, that's a better word than embarrassing.
Gil, I was going through some old ticket stubs from seeing Triumph through all the years, and most of the prices for tickets were, underneath that $20 range, except for the final show that I got to see you guys at Alpine Valley. I was always amazed by the production that went into a Triumph show, and the prices were always so affordable. And to pull that off nowadays, it would cost a fortune, the show that you guys used to do. I mean, I could see tickets being a couple $100 a pop. Do you think that's why we don't see a lot of arena bands anymore, like back in the day, because of the cost to put on a top-notch show like you guys did?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, you do see some big shows out there for different artists, for sure. But why at different times, production costs would keep bands off the road or allow them to go on the road, I'm not sure. Like, we were sort of give the fans all their money's worth type band. Like, we always looked at it like we weren't looking at a tour to see how much money we could make. I mean, yeah, we wanted to sell all the tickets and wanted the tour to be a success financially, but we weren't sitting there calculating, well, you know what? If we actually use less equipment, and have less crew, we can make more money. That thought never entered into the equation. It was always, what can we do to absolutely blow this place up and have no one ever forget having been at that concert.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. So we probably poured too much money back into the show. To some, so if an accountant was looking at what we were doing, would have said, you guys are spending too much money on production. But yeah, that was our thing. That's what we did. We liked it. We got a lot out of it too. We wanted to see the fans go crazy. When they went crazy, we felt good.
Yeah. Now in the documentary, they do some interviews with Rick Emmett, and it was really revealing that, I guess I'm kind of paraphrasing, that he said, he kind of screwed up by quitting Triumph, and it meant a lot more to him than he had actually realized. Now, how did you feel hearing that?
Well, we all went through our own thing at the time, and I guess that was what was inside Rick, and it was emotional for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we were at 88, my dad passed away, and for me, that changed my world completely, because I was an only child, and at that point, my mom was getting up in years, and my two sisters, my baby sisters, both passed away before I was born. So I was not going to leave my mother to fend for herself while I was out touring.
Yeah.
So I was in a very strange situation there, where my family situation was just such that I wanted to look after my mother. I wanted to raise my own family. And so the rock and roll touring thing just didn't appeal to me at that point as a viable path forward in life. And I toured so much and traveled so much, and I thought, we've reached a stage now where we actually did accomplish what we set out to do, and the band hasn't faded. We're we're doing great on every tour. But Rick wanted to do some solo stuff, and I had this sort of emptiness inside of me as far as desire, because I wanted to stick close to home here and support my mother and make sure she was okay. And so it kind of worked out for me for the best. I wouldn't change anything about the way it worked out. It's been funny sitting and watching, some of the other bands like Iron Maiden and Scorpions and so on, or AC/DC, that were our contemporaries that we played, shows, in different weeks in different venues, but, we'd be coming and they'd be going or whatever, kind of passing ships, and to see some of them still continue on. Styx, I know they're still going, and REO Speedwagon. Yeah, we could have done that, but I'm glad that I'm living the life that I'm living, and different strokes for different folks. Those bands that chose to just keep going and going and going, good for them. But that was not my path. I'm kind of happy with the decisions I made.
Okay,
that's awesome. Gil, to me, I've never quit listening to Triumph, even when you guys quit touring and you guys weren't doing it anymore. How did you feel when you got the reaction you got from all the Triumph fans when you did, the weekend and the documentary? I mean, that had to be a really good feeling as an artist to still feel that love how many years later?
Yeah, it's something else. And, I get it. The only way I can really understand it is I have to think of something that, I have to think of an equivalent situation for myself, which, I was a big fan of hockey, so I have to think about, kind of my favorite hockey players and how I feel about them years later. In music, I guess I kind of have to do the same thing, think about my favorite musicians and how about if I were to see them today, what feelings might come up. You kind of have to try to put yourself in their shoes, I guess. And I'm really grateful that people felt so strong about Triumph. It wasn't like we weren't some kind of Johnny-come-lately, one-hit wonder that you've, listen to the record for 6 months and forget about the band forever. Like, our fans were absolutely loyal as heck, and they still are. And that's something else. It really hits you when you see them after all these years and they showed up for that event that you just mentioned and see the tears in their eyes and the taking photos with them all and feeling their hands, tremble, and it's really something.
Yeah, definitely. Now, your 40th anniversary of the US Festival is coming out on vinyl, which, are you surprised by the comeback of vinyl after all these years?
Not really. Vinyl's got its own special tone and its own special richness. And, what we're seeing nowadays is we're seeing a rise of music therapy, for example. It's an area that I'm very interested in. And I think vinyl explains some of that in the way, vinyl, when it was replaced to a large degree by CDs, and CDs, people thought, well, this sounds clearer and so on.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it kind of sounds more brittle,
Yeah.
and because of the way the files, by the way the sound is digitized, like a lot of what happens is you find it changes the tone, and that's why it sounds, a little more brittle. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's the word I'll use.
Yeah.
And it's not as sweet, not as rich, and so I think people crave the sound, the tone of vinyl. I think is more soothing to the soul. So it has more of a therapeutic effect, listening to music off vinyl than it might otherwise, in some of the digital formats. I mean, especially when we got up beyond, at least there was a fair amount of resolution on CDs, but then when we ended up getting bombarded by MP3 files, which are garbage.
Oh, yeah.
Those things are like listening to, a mosquito buzzing around your head. So
yeah.
Hopefully there'll be more of a return to, to high resolution audio. I've been having a hard time keeping up track of it really, but I noticed, even if you just do a basic comparison between listening to a track on Spotify and listening to the same track, if it's the original version on YouTube, and you'll still find it sounds better, on Spotify. So, there's going to be opportunities, in the streaming business and in the production side of audio to create higher resolution. Technology just keeps moving forward, right? So I think we've hopefully gone through the bad era of sound, and it's maybe behind us now, and we're maybe headed, in a different direction. It'll be interesting to see the use of immersive audio, which is, really coming on strong. I know here at the studio here, we're converting one of our rooms to an Atmos room. And there's been a lot of chit-chat back and forth about, the types of music that are appropriate, let's say. And a lot of backlash actually from some major engineers, which I get their point when they're looking at the speaker arrays in Atmos, for example, and they're saying, well, that's not how, as if there's only a 2-lane highway, right? It's left and right, and if you're standing in front of a band in a hall, then that's the way you're supposed to hear the music. And I think these guys miss the point. They miss the point because there's all kinds of different music. So, not to harp on music therapy, but for example, using that, if you have a track that's nature, that's like you're walking through a forest and you're listening to the birds and you're listening to the wind rustle the trees and all that stuff, that's still a form of music that really benefits from that immersive approach. So not that all, the songs by Aerosmith and Tom Petty are going to work that way, or Triumph for that matter, but I think there's some forms of music that will benefit from that, which is yet another twist. Or, the algorithms that they're coming out now for earbuds and so on to simulate some of these effects. So I think combining higher resolution along with more opportunities for speaker placement in immersive arrays and so on, I think it's going to lead to, a really cool audio world that we're approaching now quite rapidly.
Nice.
It's very nice. Over the past few years, Gil, Triumph music has been getting put back out in front of the audience, like with the Allied Forces box set, the documentary, now this Us Festival vinyl. Is there anything in the works that you could tell us about today?
Yeah, we've got a tribute album that's going to be released. I think it'll be the fourth quarter of 23. And Mike Klink, who is a famous producer in LA, I'm sure you've heard of him mostly from his work probably with Guns N' Roses. But Mike is a great friend of ours, and he's producing a Triumph tribute album, and he's got just some absolutely amazing musicians and amazing singers that are on the record. Our buddy Sebastian Bach is singing on there. Phil X is singing and playing guitar. Mickey Thomas from Starship and Larry from Styx is on there. Members of Chicago. I mean, there's Joey Belladonna from Anthrax. Can't forget him. I love his voice.
Oh yeah.
And from Nancy from Heart. Nancy Wilson from Heart.
Nice.
Wow.
She's singing on there. So I can tell you, is a fantastic record. Alex Lifeson's new band, Envy and None. Their entire band plays a song. It's on there. So that'll be amazing listening to that track. It's got my friend Andy Kern playing bass with Alex on that track, and it's beautiful sounding record. So there's a lot of surprises, a lot of stuff for everybody, and I think that'll really it'll knock a lot of people's socks off. The joke, as Mike is sending us the rough mixes and stuff, the joke that's been going back and forth, I keep telling him, Mike, you got to make it sound a little worse, man. You're going to make these guys are all going to sound better than Triumph. we have a joke, He's got Jesus. I mean, so many, even the drummers too, like Kenny Aronoff, Tommy Aldridge. Like, come on. Got the
best. Nice. Now, one last question. I asked Rick when he was on the show, and he agreed. Do you think the song "Magic Power" could have benefited from adding some cowbell?
Well, let's just say there's no such thing as too much cowbell. Let's start there.
That's the way I look at it.
Hey, Gil, where's the best place for our listeners to keep up to date with what's going on with Triumph?
Well, I would just say probably our website. We're not the world's greatest at running a website, but we try to keep some stuff there all the time, and on our Twitter feed as well. And we got an Instagram now that's a little bit more active. We were, because we weren't performing live, we don't have the socials that a lot of bands would have from performing live, but we try to pump out enough stuff there, through Metalwork Studios, mainly the people up here that are helping keep that moving, and our merch company, Manic Merch, they do a good job too. So there's a few. Our social feeds are somewhat active, and the website as well, triumphmusic.com.
All right. Well, we always let our guests pick the song out of the interview. So from the Triumph catalog, what would be Gil Moore's choice?
Holy smokes, that's a loaded one. I get so many of them that I like. Just depends on, we're in the middle of the afternoon, so let me think. You know what? I'm going to leave you on a positive note with Fight the Good Fight.
All right.
Nice.
Gil Moore, we want to thank you for your time today, and we also want to thank you for the years and years of great music from Triumph, and you are always welcome back on this show.
Well, I sure appreciate that, and I hope you have a great afternoon today, guys, and, it's been a real pleasure.